Hello and welcome here to Talk FCB, back again for another video today. You may have noticed yesterday I did come back and make a video. I'm here today. A lot of people seem to be going on about Barça B, players being released from Barça B, players being sold from Barça B. So I just thought I'd come here and just go through basically what I think has actually gone on there, some of the decisions. Bartomeu has been criticised, the board in general. So just basically what is going on. And the first thing I want to say is, there's a massive gap now between Barça B and the first team. I think when Pep was in charge and you saw Busquets and Pedro promoted to the first team and already integrated into the first team straight away, it's not really like that anymore. Barça are now in the third tier of Spanish football. They're a long way away from a really competitive league. This is a league that's got very, very poor teams in it. It's a poor standard of football. There's a lot of teams in that third tier, and it's going to be very, very tough for them to actually get out of it. So basically, you've got players playing there week in, week out. Sometimes they'll play against teams who are half decent, and other times they'll play against teams who really they should be beaten, by a lot of goals. But that's not really happening, and there's a huge gap now between the first team and Barça B. So when you're promoting a player, you've not only got to think of him, adapting to the mental demands of playing for the first team, but also, the physical demands and also the kind of level that La Liga is compared to what is now the third division in Spain. So there's a massive gap there. And that's what's different to a few years ago. A few years ago, not long ago really, Barça B were third in the Segunda division. So, when you're third, that high up in the second division, the gap really isn't that great. You can step up and down and you can go between the two teams as though it's nothing. But right now, there's a really, really big gap. So a big example and a big player that's been talked about an awful lot for the past year, really, and that's Grimaldo. The captain, or the former captain of Barcelona B, has been sold now to Benfica. His contract was coming to an end. It looks like he was going to leave now for quite a while. He did that interview, didn't he, where he said, Luis Enrique has his team, I have my team at Barça B. And first of all, I think there's been way too much made of this. I think Grimaldo, he's shown some promise with Barça B. He's had some very, very good performances, and he's been a very, very loyal servant to Barça B. He's played a lot of games there. He's captain, of course. So, he deserves respect for that. But he shouldn't be coming out and making statements like, Luis Enrique has his team. He hasn't even spoke to me. He shouldn't expect to be spoken to. You don't have that sort of attitude when you're in Barcelona B. You've got to accept whatever comes to you. When your chance arrives, you've got to take it, and until it does, you just got to work hard, get your head down, and basically stay what you're there to do, and that's to play football. And Grimaldo, I felt, spoke a bit too much. He's always speaking about his contract, and obviously he didn't make any attempt to push the club to renew the contract. And I'm not saying that we're blameless in all this. Maybe his contract should have been, extended. Maybe Luis Enrique should have called him up for a few games, but I think a lot of people expected Grimaldo to go to Benfica and straight away be in their team because he's that good. That has not happened. Grimaldo now has been at Benfica for nearly a month and he's played no games. Benfica have had 4 matches since he joined. He has not even been in the squad for one of them. Their left backs aren't particularly brilliant, so it already shows there is a gulf. Whether you're good for Barça B, and Grimaldo was pretty good for Barça B. He was pretty good. He wasn't incredible though. You wouldn't look at him and say this is a guy who could really go to the very top level. He was a very good player, and he could have been a good backup to Jordi Alba. And I understand people who are saying, well, Adriano is not at the top level at the moment. I agree with that, but Adriano's on big wages. We haven't been able to offload him yet, so you can see why maybe we'd keep him in the fold and maybe not promote Grimaldo. But certainly, if he's not in the Benfica team yet, and he's not even been anywhere near the squad, how big a difference would it be if he'd have come back to Barcelona? At that sort of level, how easy would it have been to him to adapt? So I think a lot of things have been made of it. I'm not saying it was the right decision to sell him. I'm just saying that a lot is expected of him, and a lot of people are going on and on about it like he was a world-class player. Yes, there was potential there, but he's not even made the squad for Benfica yet, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take. And I think he expected to walk into that team as well, and it hasn't quite gone that way yet. Another very big point is people constantly talk about playing La Masia players, wanting to see them promoted, want to see them get a chance, and I completely agree with that. Everybody wants to see that. Yet why is it then when Munir, when Sandro is given a chance in the first team, an extended run in the first team, that whenever they have a poor few games, and yes, admittedly, Sandro and Munir for the best part of this season and the end of last season as well, haven't performed well. But you've got to look at the pressure upon them. When Bojan came into the first team a long, long time ago now, the pressure he said afterwards is incredible. When you make that step up to the first team, it's an incredible responsibility to go into that first team and play consistently. And that's what Masia and Sandro had to do. They had to play every game under that sort of pressure. Masia's 20 years old, Sandro about the same. And these players now had to adapt. And you see the other night with Masia against Espanyol, he scored the double. And that's what something, by the way, not many players have done, score a brace away at Espanyol. Not even Lionel Messi has done that. And they were two decent goals. The first goal, really, really good goal. He takes around the keeper. He keeps his cool. And I just think at times like that, you do look at it and you think, why are these players, being so harshly treated? You've got to give them time. If you want these players to come through the system, if you want them to be promoted, you've got to give them time. You've got to give them that chance to prove themselves. And you can't straight away be on their back. If you want to see them promoted, let's give them the time and let's lay off their back for a little while. But of course, yes, we want to be seeing more often from those two particularly, and we may well be seeing the end of Sandro as he could be leaving the club anytime soon. Another thing is, again, about players sold. You look at a lot of players that are always sold from Barça B. I've just mentioned Grimaldo, and whenever there's a player sold, there is uproar. There really is. Oh my, we shouldn't be selling this guy, this and that. Well, Adama went last summer to Aston Villa, and everybody was saying, why are we selling this guy? He's good enough for the first team. Now, people who actually watch Barça B on a regular basis will know that Adama was a very, very good player, very promising player. But one thing he did lack was consistency, and that is basically what you need to succeed in the first team. Barça B is all about development, it's all about potential, but in order to get that step up, you need that consistency, and Adama was struggling with that. That's why I think to sell him actually wasn't a bad decision. And if you look at him now at Aston Villa, he's had some injury problems, but for the 7 million that we receive for him, a lot of Aston Villa fans are very, very unhappy. Yes, he does have that brilliance now and again, he's got some good assists, but he does not produce it on a regular basis. He's now got he's out for a few weeks, I think, but basically he's not really done it in the Premier League. And again, it makes you think, if he had been promoted, what exactly would the situation be? Would we be able to count on Adama when in fact we put that 7 million towards signing possibly Alex Vidal or Arda Turan? Because again, we're a bit short on money. We needed the money at the time. It was absolute uproar when he was sold. We've got to buy back on him. What is the problem there? Again, it's people overreacting. Basically, all in all, it came down to this last week when there was a real exodus. Everybody seemed to be getting released from Barça B. There was Aitor, there was Banyak who got released, and there was a big uproar. Again, people going absolutely crazy that Barcelona B, in the situation that they're in, are releasing players that are tearing up their contracts and letting them go. Banyak was a player that a few years ago he was included in, I think, Tito Villanova, his pre-season. I remember him playing against Bayern Munich and he looked pretty good. But since then, he hasn't kicked on at all. He's not really progressed as a player. In his early 20s now, it seems as though the development seems to have stopped. And he was released by Barça B. But again, if you're in that sort of situation they're in third division, they're not doing particularly well, why aren't you keeping hold of all your players? But then, after the uproar, it comes out that Banyak actually returned 1 week late after the Christmas break. He gave no reason for being 1 week late. He just strolled in 1 week after he was supposed to be back. And he said, I'm here now. And you can't do that. If you're a professional footballer at any level, you've got to show that level of commitment, and especially at Barça B, if you want to get to the top, you've got to work hard, you've got to discipline. So I can see why possibly that would have been cancelled. And then there's Aitor, who apparently was released. He has been released and he's got a new club already. I think he's gone to Villarreal B. That was a strange one because he's the top goal scorer of Barcelona B, and everyone again is going crazy about that one. People say he's the top goal scorer, but how many goals has he got? He's got 4 goals. 4 goals, and we're over halfway into the season. He's not a striker, he's a winger, I accept that, but that is the sort of quality that we're talking about. When somebody like that, who's just been released, he's got 4 goals, he's the Barça B top goal scorer, this is the kind of quality that we're now talking about. And I'm not saying that Bartomeu and the board are not to blame for this decline of the B team. All I'm saying is, we're saying, why aren't there more B team players coming up? Why are we selling these B team players? Why are we releasing these B team players? And that is because now there is a bigger gap than there ever has been between the first team and the B team. There's a division gap, there's a gap in quality, there's a gulf in class, and certainly now the players that are down there are finding it increasingly hard to not only improve their game, but also to step up their game and make that big step to the first team, which is what every player there wants to do. And I think right now the board have looked at it and they've said, right, in order to get it back like it was under Pep, where there was a very, very close bond between the B team and the first team, the first step in any of that is to get Barça B back to the Segunda. And I think that is what their idea might be with their releasing of all the players. They've released Aito, they've released Banyat. There may be more to follow that. Babinski apparently is going to go at the end of his contract, possibly in the summer. What they're trying to do now, they've got a lot of players, they're trying to bring them in who are maybe experienced players in the lower leagues of Spanish football. They're not La Masia players. It might not be pretty at the moment, but what they're trying to do is get Barcelona in the situation that they may well get promotion from the third division. That might not happen this season, but certainly next season it needs to be the target. Get out of this division, because it's not helping anyone. It's not helping the players. It's not helping that gap between the clubs. And what we need them to get back to the Segunda, get back in that second division, playing against decent teams, decent players, and getting that massive experience that they need to take it on, and to then they can join it with the first team with that experience and with that quality as well. So the first step has to be to get promoted, and I think that's what the board are trying to do, although they're not really going about it in a particularly good way. But as we know with them, it's not always that way that happens. So leave your thoughts down below, guys. What are your thoughts on all of these things that I've spoken about? There's Grimaldo, there's La Masia, there's the big gap, there's Munir and Sandro. What are your thoughts on those two? Adama Traore, is it still the wrong decision to sell him to Aston Villa? And what are your thoughts also on the players that have been released from Barça B, and also the players that may well be coming in to replace them, established players in the lower leagues of Spanish football? So let me know down below. It's nice to be back, guys. Interested to hear your thoughts on all of these things. But until next time, I'll see you soon. Vesca, El Barça.